On October 14, 2012, a company that sells caffeinated sugar water spent an estimated $50 million to send one man to the literal edge of space. They placed him in a specialized capsule, lifted him 24 miles above the Earth with a massive helium balloon, and then had him jump out. For over 9 minutes, he fell back to Earth, breaking the sound barrier with his own body. This was not a government space program. It was not a scientific mission. It was a marketing campaign for an energy drink. A campaign that didn't show the product once. Why would a beverage company build its own private space program? The answer reveals one of the most brilliant and misunderstood business strategies of the modern era. The company was, of course, Red Bull. Founded in Austria in 1987, its core product is a simple one. A carbonated drink with caffeine, taurine, B vitamins, and sugar. In a market now flooded with competitors, the drink itself is unremarkable. Yet, Red Bull sells over 11 billion cans a year. It has created a global empire and a brand that is more synonymous with adventure, extreme sports, and peak human performance than any other in the world. They achieved this not by advertising their drink, but by ignoring it. They focused on building something else entirely. Something much bigger. So how did a company selling a flavored beverage transform into a global media powerhouse that owns sports teams, produces feature films, and defines entire cultural movements? How did they make the can in your hand feel like a ticket to a world of adrenaline and possibility? That is the question we are answering today. To understand Red Bull's dominance, you have to understand that its founder, Dietrich Mateschitz, was never just selling a drink. He was selling an idea. The story begins in 1982. Mateschitz, an Austrian marketing executive for a toothpaste company, was traveling in Thailand. Suffering from jet lag, he tried a local tonic popular with truck drivers called Krating Dang, which translates to Red Gao or Red Bull. He was amazed by its effects. He saw an opportunity not just to import a product, but to import a concept. Back then, the beverage market was simple. You had soft drinks like Coke and Pepsi, and you had sports drinks like Gatorade. There was no energy drink category in the West. Mateschitz created it. His genius was in the positioning. He knew he wasn't selling a simple refreshment. He was selling a functional benefit. The ability to be more awake, more alert, more capable. This was captured in one of the most famous slogans in advertising history: Red Bull gives you wings. But a slogan is just words. To make it real, Red Bull had to show it. Their initial strategy was pure guerrilla warfare. They completely sidestepped traditional, expensive advertising. Instead, they targeted the very people they wanted to associate with their brand. They went to university campuses and gave away free cases of Red Bull to students studying for exams. They sponsored all-night parties and music events. They hired student brand managers to distribute the product and create a sense of authentic, grassroots adoption. They famously left empty cans on tables and in trash bins at popular London clubs to create the illusion that the drink was already a massive hit. They were creating a story. A story that Red Bull was the unofficial fuel for people who pushed boundaries, whether it was on a final exam or a dance floor. They didn't have to tell you the drink gave you energy, the context in which you found it did the talking for them. As the brand grew, Mateschitz realized that sponsoring other people's events was not enough. Sponsorship meant your logo was just one among many, fighting for attention. To truly own the idea of giving you wings, Red Bull had to build the entire playground. So they started creating their own, completely original events. In 1992, they launched the Red Bull Flugtag, which means flight day in German. In this event, teams of amateurs built homemade, human-powered flying machines and launched them off a pier into a body of water. It was absurd, hilarious, and incredibly visual. It was the slogan made real. This was the blueprint. Red Bull went on to create a portfolio of unforgettable events that no one else could have imagined. The Red Bull Air Race, where pilots navigate an obstacle course in the sky. Red Bull Crashed Ice, a brutal combination of ice hockey and downhill skating. The Red Bull Cliff Diving World Series. These events were marketing genius. They were so unique and entertaining that media outlets wanted to cover them. Red Bull was generating massive publicity without paying for ad space. They were creating the content themselves. This led to the single most important pivot in the company's history. By the mid-2000s, Red Bull was filming, editing, and packaging the content from its own events. They realized they weren't just a beverage company that ran events. They were a media company. In 2007, they made it official, launching Red Bull Media House, a standalone, full-service production company responsible for creating films, documentaries, TV series, magazines, and digital content. They had officially transitioned from a company that buys media to a company that is the media. With their own media company and their own events, Red Bull needed heroes. And they found them in a place traditional marketers ignored. Mainstream sports were already saturated. Companies spent fortunes to put their logo on a famous basketball player or football team. Red Bull looked elsewhere. They went to the fringes, to the niche and emerging worlds of action and extreme sports. They started signing athletes in disciplines like skateboarding, snowboarding, freestyle motocross, and surfing. But their approach was radically different. A typical sponsorship deal is transactional. A company pays an athlete to wear a logo and appear in commercials. Red Bull's philosophy was to invest in the athlete's entire career and story. They don't just sponsor athletes, they incubate them. Red Bull identifies young, promising talent and gives them the resources to reach their full potential. They provide salaries, access to world-class training facilities like their Athlete Performance Center in Austria, and most importantly, they give them a platform. Red Bull Media House exists to tell these athletes' stories. They produce stunning documentaries and viral video clips that showcase not just the athletes' talent, but their personalities, their struggles, and their triumphs. The product itself is almost never the focus. The athlete is the hero. The performance is the story. The brand is simply the context. It's the silent enabler of greatness. This creates a level of authenticity and loyalty that a traditional commercial could never achieve. The athletes aren't paid actors. They are living, breathing embodiments of the Red Bull gives you wings ethos. This brings us back to the man on the edge of space. The Red Bull Stratos project, with Felix Baumgartner's record-breaking freefall, was the ultimate culmination of this entire strategy. Think about it. It was a completely original event they created and owned. It starred one of their long-term sponsored athletes, whose story they had been telling for years. And it was produced and broadcast to the world by their own media house. The live stream of the jump was watched by over 8 million concurrent viewers on YouTube alone, a record at the time. The event generated an estimated 6 billion media impressions. For one afternoon, the entire world stopped to watch a Red Bull commercial that felt nothing like a commercial. It felt like history. And this reveals the core secret. The aha moment of the Red Bull strategy. Red Bull is not an energy drink company. It is a media company that happens to be funded by an energy drink. The billions of cans they sell each year are not the end product. They are the financing mechanism for a vast content engine. The drink funds the events and the athletes. The events and athletes generate incredible stories. The stories, produced by their media house, build a powerful brand identity centered on adventure, risk, and human achievement. That brand identity creates a powerful emotional connection with customers, making them choose Red Bull over a dozen cheaper competitors. It's a perfect, self-sustaining flywheel. They don't have to interrupt culture with advertising, because they are the ones creating the culture. The can of Red Bull is simply the price of admission to this incredible world they've built. The brilliance of the Red Bull strategy is that it built a competitive moat that is almost impossible to breach. A competitor like Monster or Rockstar can create a similar tasting drink. They can even try to copy the marketing by sponsoring athletes. But they cannot replicate the 2 decades of authentic storytelling and culture creation that Red Bull has engineered. They cannot simply buy their way into becoming a beloved media brand. Red Bull provides a masterclass in the power of content marketing. They understood decades before it became a buzzword, that the most effective way to sell something is to stop talking about the product and start providing value to the audience. In their case, the value is breathtaking entertainment. The broader lesson is this: in an age where consumers are tired of being advertised to, the brands that win are the ones that become publishers. The ones that build an audience by creating content so good, people would seek it out even if it had no branding at all. Red Bull doesn't sell a drink. It sells a feeling. It sells an identity. And that is a strategy that truly gives a brand wings. If you learn something new, hit the like button and subscribe for more strategy breakdowns. And let us know in the comments, what company's strategy should we unlock next?